Now keep this in mind. We're waiting our 5 minutes for those muffins to come out, but you know that anytime you have fresh fruit, that you always want to try to, first of all, use it so that you can keep it at its prime. And I typically blueberries, strawberries, I usually put them in the freezer as quickly as possible and kind of go through them, make sure that they're all in good shape, and then put them in. Welcome to the kitchen of Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme. Today we are very busy. If you like those kind of things, stay right there, pull up a chair, get something to drink, and let's have a good time. When you're shopping the vegetables and fruits of the season, you have to buy as many as you can. And also, you want to find things to do with them so that they're not wasted. So today, I had the pleasure of picking up a ton of blueberries. I threw most of them into the freezer, and then I thought, I can do a little canning, I can do a little baking, and so that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to put those blueberries to work. I'm Leona Dooley, and this is Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme. And you know, here in the kitchen, we are serving our family and our friends and our community. We're doing all kinds of things. But the biggest thing that we're doing is that we are working as home cooks. And that's a great responsibility because we want to provide the nutrition for our family. We want to be able to do it in an economical way. Plus, we want to be able to cut that time down so that we can have a good time in the kitchen, get the apron off, and we're ready to go and enjoy something else with the family. So if you like those kinds of things, please be sure to go down, subscribe, hit that like button, and also ring the bell twice so that you'll be notified every time I upload. We're going to be making some blueberry jam. And so with that, I've got my double boiler going here because I'm going to be able to water bath my little half-pint containers inside of there. I also have a pan here for the actual blueberries. So I'm going to add in, excuse me, some frozen blueberries. We're going to put those in. And you know, blueberries can make quite a mess. So I have to keep a washcloth close because the last thing you want is for the blueberry stains to get all over everything. So I'm doing that, trying to keep the blueberry mess away. Now, in addition to the blueberries, I already know I need to add in about 1.5 cups of water. Here's my 1.5 cups of water that I'm going to pour over the blueberries, as well as I'm going to put in at least 1 cup to 2 cups. Let's see, I've got 1 cup of maple syrup that I'm going to add in, and that's going to take care of that. Now I'm going to need a wooden spoon because our mixture is going to come to a boil. We're going to let it come to a boil. Now the good thing is that because these were frozen blueberries, we're going to have plenty of liquid, and these are going to need to bubble. Now this particular recipe is a very savory and somewhat unique. We're going to add in about 1.5 cups of chopped dates. I'm going to put those in and give those a good stir so they can come up with the blueberries. All of this to come up to temperature and to start to boil. Blueberry syrup or blueberry jam or blueberry preserves, whichever you decide to prepare, is always delicious. So we have a nice heavy bottom pan, and we're going to let this boil. Now, while we're waiting for this to boil, I'm going to put these 3 teaspoons in the freezer because we're going to need them later to test our jelly. You'll notice that as it comes up to a boil, that there is a foamy look to it. And what you have to do is to keep stirring that foam down. And that just what it's doing is that it's evaporating the liquids and getting very sugary and syrupy down in the pan. I'm adding some lemon juice into this mixture because that's going to help to raise the acidity level and also add a spark of additional freshness to this blueberry jam. You may not know this, but blueberries are very high in pectin. And so because of that, we don't have to add any additional pectin. And because these blueberries are pretty fresh, there is more pectin in the blueberries. Now, when you're cooking your jams and jellies, and I'm using what they call a long boil method. And so what that means is that we're cooking the fruit and allowing the sugar mixture and the fruit and the liquids to get nice and thick and glossy. And we want it to reach a gelling point. And so that's going to be around 220 degrees Fahrenheit. And at 220 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to use our freezer spoons and start to check to see if our blueberry jelly is just right. We're going to let this boil and bubble until the temperature gets up to about 220, 225. And at 220, 225, I'm going to add a few warming spices like a little cinnamon, a little allspice, maybe even a little touch of powdered ginger. And I'm going to add in a little bit of vanilla because I know that's going to make it taste good. But let me tell you, I've already taken just a tiny taste because I wanted to make sure it had good flavor. And I used, you saw that I used maple syrup in it early on. When I added the water, I added in maple syrup to it. Oh, the maple syrup and the brown sugar give it a whole new dimension, and I think you'll like it. So even if you don't add the cinnamon and the allspice, the maple sugar and the brown sugar are a winner. I have my jars over here staying nice and hot, and just before we get ready to fill them, I'll take them out, put them on a towel, probably a few at a time, just so that they will stay nice and hot. The lids will be nice and hot and ready to receive the nice hot blueberry liquid. I need for this to register between 220 and 225. Let's see where we are. We've got 220, so we're going to let it come up just a few more degrees because it's kind of bouncing between 219 and 220. Okay, you see it nice and bubbly, and it's coming right along. So every now and then I'm going to walk over and give it a good stir and just bring it back down. I'm going to check the temperature. Okay. Since it's at 225, I took out one of my freezer spoons, so let's see what's gonna happen. So there it is on the spoon, but it's still a little drippy. I think it's going to need just a little while longer. Not quite ready. But boy, does it taste good. Now you notice I put my finger through the back and they stayed in place. So it's just about ready. It's just about there. We're going to take it up to 230. And then I think it'll be just perfect. And once it gets to 230, then I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of vanilla and all the warming spices. Okay guys, I'm going to get my jars out. I'm going to leave the lids in so they can stay nice and hot, but I'm going to get the liquid out of the jars and stand them up. They're nice and hot. Hot. I'm going to stand those up. I'm using a towel so my hands won't get burned because I know these jars are nice and hot. Okay, there we go. I'm going to stick it in. To our liquid, I'm going to add our tablespoon of vanilla and our warming spices. One nice tablespoon of vanilla, because that's going to give it great flavor. And I'm going to add in about a teaspoon of our warming spices. Now I've turned the fire off. As you know, vanilla has a little bit of a tendency to get a little fiery, or it can. And we're going to come over here and we're going to fill these jars. I have a little bowl of vinegar that I have sitting right here along with a towel. So when it's time, we'll be able to put the clean off the tops of the jars and get them into the water bath. Okay, now technically some people don't water bath. They choose not to, and that's totally up to them, but I do. And I have my funnel. I don't have a metal one. This is the one I have, so that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to actually, let me switch this out. Switch these pots out. Scoot this back toward the back and bring our mixture over. Okay, so here we go. We are ready. going to fill it up to about an inch of the top. About an inch. Nice and hot. And our lids are over here in the hot water. You take those out. Thought I had everything ready to go, but the lids are giving me a hard time here. We'll put the lids on in just a second. All right, so we got one. We got my vinegar, white vinegar. I'm going to clean off the top of this jar. Get it wiped off so we can get a good contact. Put the little lid on. Put his band on. It is very hot, as you would imagine. So we're just going to finger tighten it. So there's one. Okay, we have the next jar. Move it over to the next one. That's nice and hot. My vinegary towel. Clean it off so we can get a good contact. Use my lid and finger tighten it. Now let me just say, I am not a professional canner, as you can see. And I'm definitely not used to having an audience when I'm doing it. And so I was just a little shaky and a little nervous because I wanted to make sure that I did it correctly and also make sure that you were able to see. So I hope you just kind of smile and think, you know, if she can do it, I can do it. I have been using the Blue Ribbon canning book, and I've used it so much that it has little drops and drips of either strawberries or blueberries or whatever it may be that I'm working on. But I also have a book that's called Small Batch Canning, which is really nice because it allows us as home cooks to take small batches from either the farmer's market or the grocery store of the vegetables or fruits that we collected, and it allows us to be able to can in small batches rather than having to can in such large quantities. I am a firm believer that you need to see the good points as well as some of the boo-boos that may happen when you're cooking or canning or whatever it is that you're doing in the kitchen. Because all home cooks need to know that every day is not perfect. Now, as you can see, I could not find my jar lifter. So because of that, I'm using this little device and it didn't work. I dropped the first jar out of the canner and I actually let this water bath for about 10 minutes over, I let it come to a boil and then let it boil for 10 minutes, making sure that I always had at least an inch of water above the top of the jars. But I can tell you this, all of the jars came out absolutely perfect except the one that I dropped. So that particular jar is going to have to go into the refrigerator and I'm going to have to use it first because I have a feeling that there's a problem with the lid. I'm bringing you in close because I want you to see that all of the lids have sealed except the one that I dropped. Blueberries was on tap for today. Anytime your bananas start to ripen before you have a chance to actually eat them, I would suggest that you actually take them and throw them into the freezer because what happens is that they get nice and juicy, but the good thing is that you won't have to throw them away. So what I did was that I put all of my bananas over the past month or so into this particular bag and I'm going to take them out. And since I still have some blueberries left, I'm going to make these blueberry banana muffins. And I'm just hoping that it all comes together absolutely perfect. I'm pretty sure they will. But I'm going to be using frozen blueberries. So I'll let you know whatever it is that I have to tweak because of the fact that the blueberries are frozen. So let's get started. I need to take these peel off of the bananas and get them all mashed up and ready to go. I noticed that some of the peel was still on the bananas, so I had to actually take a knife and go through and just kind of take some of those little edges off. Now, once I finish doing that, then I'm just going to mash these bananas up. I've taken about 4 out, 4 whole bananas out, and what I'm going to do is to mash them and actually measure out how much of the mashed bananas that I need for this recipe. I know I'm pretty close because I usually use about 3 to 4 bananas in this recipe. Now, let me remind you of the fact that all of my recipes are going to be down in the description box, so be sure to go there if you're interested in preparing this particular recipe. So let's get them nice and mashed and ready to go. And this recipe is going to come together so quickly that these muffins are going to be in the oven and ready for us to eat in nothing flat. Be sure to mix your dry ingredients well because you do not want to get a mouthful of either baking soda or baking powder alone when you bite into your muffins. So make sure that they're mixed in advance of putting them into the wet ingredients. Into those nice mashed bananas, we're going to add a half cup of melted butter. And I'm using salted butter because of the fact that I'm not going to add any additional salt into this mixture. measured out about 2 cups of my frozen blueberries. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take some of my dry mixture and just sprinkle it over those blueberries and give them a good shake, so that once I add these blueberries into the final mixture, as they bake, the blueberries will stay in place rather than all falling to the bottom of the muffins. You'll notice that I'm filling these muffin tins all the way up to the top. And the reason for that is because I want them to have a nice high topping. And so I'm trying to make sure that I have plenty in each of the 12 muffin containers. Now, also, keep this in mind, is that after I finish, I'll take a moist towel and just kind of wipe around the top of the muffin tin just to kind of clean it off a little bit. And we also have a delicious crumb topping that's going to be going on top of these. I promise you, these muffins are going to be a showstopper. Let's work on the cinnamon crumb topping. I need 3/4 cup of flour, 3/4. I'm gonna put it in this bowl. There's 1, 2, and 3. This has been a fun time of cooking with you guys. It's been so much fun. We need a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. You know I'm using brown sugar because that's what I like. It has a little more depth of flavor. And I need a 1/2 cup of that. So Let me get my 1/2 cup measure, and we're ready to go. Make sure we pack it in. Okay, got our 1/2 cup in. I need some cinnamon, and I'm going to need 4 tablespoons of butter. So let me get those going, and we'll be ready to go. Teaspoon of cinnamon. I think I'm going to estimate that. Teaspoon of cinnamon. You know, when you stay in the kitchen quite a bit, you can do those estimations. You know, our grandmothers and our mothers didn't do all that measuring, using all the measuring tools and devices. They didn't use that. They used what they had, which was their hand, and worked from there. Now I'm going to just break this up, and then I'm going to put the butter in, and we'll get this nice and crumbly. But I do want everything well mixed before I do that. So I'm mixing our flour, our sugar, our cinnamon. And this is regular all-purpose flour, just like we used in the main recipe. Now don't forget, when you're doing this, if your blueberries are frozen, that's fine. The only difference is that it may take just a tad bit longer to cook, and you want to make sure that those blueberries stay frozen, because otherwise you'll end up with purple muffins, and that's not what we want. So let me get to the butter. 4 tablespoons. Okay, I've got my melted butter that I'm going to stir in, and we're going to make this crumb topping that's going to go on top. Now you notice that I filled these muffin tins up, and the reason for doing that was because of the fact we want them to have a nice high top, and to be rather dramatic. You know, I like dramatic. So anyway, we're going for the drama. Okay, so I'm going to use this spoon, and we're going to get this well mixed because I want it nice and crumbly. So you just have to keep mixing and mixing and kind of mashing and mixing until all the flour is taken in. It just takes a little while, a little patience, something I'm working on. There we go. Oh yeah. Now I'm smelling it because I want it to smell rather cinnamony, and I'm not getting the smell I want, so I'm going to add a little bit more cinnamon. You know, the nose knows. I have my oven heating on 425. We're going to leave it in the oven at 425 for the first 5 minutes. Then we're going to cut it down to 350 and let them finish baking. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay. All right, let me get a little spoonful and put on each one. A little crumb top. And he falls over, just push him over where he's supposed to be. I'm kind of dividing it out, and then we can always add more. just work everything into and onto our muffin tops. Clean fingers, of course. There we go. All right, we're ready to put them in the oven. And rinse my hands. And let's get them in. Okay, you ready? 425 for 5 minutes. Just to get them hot and get them started. Okay. 425, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. Okay, at the end of 5 minutes, we're going to be ready to turn it down to 350 and bake it for about 15 minutes. I want to make some blueberry jam because I've got lots of blueberries that are in my freezer. I want to make some blueberry banana muffins because I've got way too many bananas in the freezer. I need to use those up as well. All right, guys, my 5 minutes is up. I'm turning my oven down to 350, and we're going to set this for, I'm going to say 13 minutes, 13 and a half minutes, and then that way that'll give me a chance to check it to make sure that they're doing okay down there and that nothing's burning. And when it's time, I'll take them out and we'll have a taste together. I'm Leona and this is Ebony Ivy Thyme. And you know, here in the kitchen, we are serving our family and our friends and our community. We're doing all kinds of things. But the biggest thing that we're doing is that we are working as home cooks. And that's a great responsibility because we want to provide the nutrition for our family. We want to be able to do it in an economical way. Plus, we want to be able to cut that time down so that we can have a good time in the kitchen, get the apron off, and we're ready to go and enjoy something else with the family. So if you like those kinds of things, please be sure to go down, subscribe, hit that like button, and also ring the bell twice so that you'll be notified every time I upload. I'm in the process of going over the notes for making the blueberry jam, and it seems like every time I do it, I kind of have a new twist to it. So this time, I have been watching different people, watching some of the things that they've put into their blueberry jam, and I thought, you know, most of the time I use my blueberry jam for bagels or for toast. And I started seeing pork loin and pork chops being topped with this blueberry stuff. It looked like a blueberry conserve. You know, it's jammy, but it's got way more things in it. And so that's where I was really going when I put this recipe together. And you know, I'm going to post the recipe down below so that you'll have it. But the neat thing is that it really does come together pretty quickly. And the hardest part is making sure your jars are sterilized, nice and clean. You have fresh lids to go on those jars. Remember to have some vinegar so that you can wipe those jars off. So like I said, you have to have clean utensils. And keep this in mind, I'm going to water bath rather than pressure can. I don't have a pressure canner, and to be honest with you, for the amount of canning that I do, I'm not going to buy one. But what I like to do is what's called small batch canning. And I found this book that is so cool that I can look up a little small batch of whatever it is, whether it's green beans, whether it's carrots, or whether it's peas, or stay with the fruits, with the strawberries, the apples, or whatever it might be. But I can do a small batch and I can put those together. So let me show you what that book looks like. Now here's the book. It's called Small Batch Preserving. And this particular book, now I bought the hardback because it was the most reasonable. I bought it used, but it was in excellent condition. And when you go back into the blueberry section, there's not a lot of pictures in this book, but the few that are in there, they are definitely very beautiful and fun to look at. Now, so what we did and what we are going to do is a maple blueberry jam. Now, they call it a conserve because they add just a couple of things that I'm not going to put in. I'm calling it a jam because we're going to jam it up and we're going to get it on those bagels and ready to go. So, and you know what? I'm calling it a jam too because I want to keep it in a jammy state. I want to be able to distribute some to some of my friends. And I also want to keep enough that when I pull out that next pork loin during this month, we're going to bake it with the blueberry jam all kicked up. It's going to have herbs and all kinds of things inside of it. We're going to open that pork loin up. We're going to put the jam and some goat cheese, mix all that up, put it on the inside, kind of tie it together. And then when we serve it, it's going to have a little spoon of some of that blueberry conserve on top. Now that's coming up this month and I can't wait to get to that. So this book gave me some of those ideas of things that I can do. So we need at least 2 cups. Now as it turned out, I had way more than that. So if you need to multiply, you multiply, and it tells you how many jars you're going to need. The main thing you have to remember is that you need to keep the ratios correct. So for instance, this recipe has 2 cups. It's using 2 cups of either fresh or frozen blueberries. Well, if you know instead of 2 cups, you got 8 cups, then you're going to have to multiply the rest of the ingredients for that. Now, it called for, in this particular recipe, it does call for raisins. I'm adding raisins and chopped dates. So get ready. Now these muffins look divine. So I'm going to take them out and I'm going to put them on my parchment paper and let them finish cooling. I've had them cooling here, and I'm just going to take a knife and slide under it and pop each one out, because remember we loaded each one into the muffin tin. So let's get those going. They've had a chance for the topping to solidify. So we want those ready. Oh, they're coming out nicely. They are so pretty. Look at that. They smell wonderful. Guess what I'm having for lunch? It actually took about 20 minutes. We did the 5 minutes at 425, and then it took for my oven about 20 minutes for them to bake so that they came out clean when I tested them. All right, and you know, this one is going to be mine. Let me get a plate. Now here's my saucer. And you know, you can just do so much with this. Notice that just came right out very nicely. Look at how nice they look on the bottom. See, our little blueberries did not turn it purple. And that was because even though we had frozen blueberries, we made sure they stayed frozen until they got into the mix and ready to go in the oven. Let me move this pan. And I want you to see this beautiful muffin. Is that not nice? Has good texture, has a beautiful crumb topping. I'm going to break into that. Oh, yummy. Let's take a bite. Very good. And because I fill those muffin tins all the way up to the top, there's a nice little layer that's kind of crunchy at the top. They are perfect. A glass of milk and this muffin, perfect. If at all possible, always buy your fruits in season. These blueberries are delicious, they're sweet, and you can see the muffins turned out absolutely beautiful, as well as that jelly looks pretty good too. So, don't waste time. Go to your local farmer's market or to the store and pick up some blueberries. A nice crispy piece of toast. Now let's add a little bit of cream cheese. We're going to smear that on. Yummy. And you know what will be better than to put some of that blueberry jam right on top. Yes, I love cream cheese, so let's make sure we have quite a bit. And then we're going to add our blueberry jelly. Oh. Let's spread it out across the bread. It's going to be so good. Tastes delicious. That's the main thing. Let me get a top.